Now, Positively Ernie with Ernie Anastos, a New York TV legend and radio host with great positive stories and interviews.
Thanks, Ernie. You're the best.
And now, here's Ernie.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Nice to have you here today. I want to talk about something really interesting, as always, and uplifting, because that's the nature of this program, being positive and dealing with problems, but finding solutions to problems. All right, let's talk about this. There are a lot of changes in the landscape of leadership for women in America. Some progress has been made, no question about it, but we still have a long way to go. And there are many women, those of color and diversity, who have done a lot to really improve and help transform the leadership of women in this country. I want you to meet somebody who's exceptional. She is terrific. We're going to put her on camera right now. She looks fantastic. I love that hat, by the way. This is Gayle Jennings O'Byrne, and nice to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you for having me, and thank you for being willing to have this conversation.
Well, I'm happy because you know what? This is a great topic. It's something that people talk about. But, you're going to say, yes, but we need to do something about it,
yes.
right?
Yes.
And that's really, and you're doing a lot. Now, you've got something called WOCSTAR, and people think of Rockstar, but it's WOCSTAR, WOCSTAR. And this is a great organization, and you're doing so many wonderful things. Let people know exactly what it is and why you're doing it.
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah.
So I'm actually the product of one of the Hidden Figures you would have seen in the movie.
Yeah.
Those women were working at NASA on the space shuttle. And my mom was doing the same, but for the F-15 fighter plane and the DC-10.
Really?
Yeah, at
Wow,
McDonnell
that was your
Douglas.
mom.
That was my mom.
What an inspiration.
Yeah, and so I grew up seeing women in tech and in science. That was my world. I didn't know anything differently.
Yeah.
So fast forward all these years on Wall Street. I was an international lobbyist, and I was even in philanthropy for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so I saw the movement of money in all these different places and spaces, but I didn't see a lot of people like me, and I didn't see us writing the checks, making the decisions, or benefiting from the capital.
Exactly.
So I had this aha moment when a woman called me. She had 2 degrees from Ivy League schools, undergrad, grad. She'd worked at some great companies. She was on her second fintech company, and fintech was hot at the time. Yeah. But she was worried about making payroll because she couldn't raise capital. Yeah. And I thought, my goodness, the social contract that we have with people, right? Stay in school, get good grades, get a good job.
All those basics.
All those things, right? That social contract is broken. We haven't met her on the other side. And I thought, okay, what can I do? So that was the genesis of what is now WOCSTAR Capital. So I left J.P. Morgan. Jamie Dimon, the CEO, was lovely. He wrote an op-ed about the importance of the work I was doing and women entrepreneurs. He must have been proud of you.
I mean, listen, let's face it. You've got a great background as well. I mean, you were talking about all the different positions you've had, but your education, Wharton School, I mean, you've got a great background. So you understand the fundamentals of what's going on. Okay, so now you got into this, right?
Yes, so leave J.P. Morgan. I said, all right, I got to get involved and help these women that are building companies. So WOCSTAR, I said, what can we do? And as I went around and I talked to women, there were 2 things that I recognized at first in my conversations. One, we need to be taught more about how to raise capital. Because it's not ladylike, right? Talking about money, asking for money, things like that.
It's necessary.
It's necessary.
You got to have it.
Exactly. Everybody needs it. Everybody needs it. So how to raise capital, how to tell your story, and then most importantly, we just invest. So we have the academy where we train, and it's free. So anyone listening, come join us. We'll teach you how to raise capital. We'll help you with your social media.
Tell people right now, because someone's going to be listening and saying, okay, how do I reach you? Go ahead.
WOCSTAR.com. WOCSTAR.com.
Okay, WOCSTAR.com.
And you will find me on there too. My email's on there, all of it's there. So WOCSTAR Academy, 1, teaching women how to raise capital and tell their story. And then we just invest. WOCSTAR Fund. You also find that on the WOCSTAR.com. We're writing checks, $500,000, $1 million checks. And lastly, and this is something we just started this year, is WOCSTAR Media. Because there's so many great stories about women, and I thought we need a way to get those stories out.
Sure.
So we started with some plays. I invested in a couple plays, was associate producer. And within 1 year, one of those plays was nominated for 7 Tonys.
Wow. The name of the play?
For colored girls who've considered suicide when the rainbow is enough.
Wow, that's quite a title.
And I thought, my goodness, we can take topics and there will be an audience.
Of
and we
course.
can do them of quality.
Of course.
So now we're looking at films, we're signing up different authors. So more to come on the media side.
I love what you're doing. I'm going to go back just a little bit because you were talking about trying to teach women how to raise capital, how to go out there and get that money. Now, that's a big challenge, okay? Fill us in, okay? We want a quick study here. What do you do? How do you connect to get people to put up that money that you really need to get businesses started and to advance?
Yeah. So the first thing is we have to help people understand whether they're investable and what type of capital they can really go after. I love, this is the Shark Tank generation, but not everything is appropriate for venture capitalists like myself.
Yep.
So we have to talk about what kind of capital makes sense for people's businesses.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. The second thing is we've got to figure out where the investors are. We talk a lot about access. I believe that in that 7 degrees of separation, right? The Kevin Bacon
right.
model, right? So we have to think differently about who's in our networks and who can be helpful, who's an ally, who can write checks.
But isn't there also a lot of competition, Gayle, for trying to get that money from probably the same sources as well? So you've got to go in there with a unique story. To me, I'm thinking that if I'm going to invest in something, right, one word comes to me. I have to believe in you.
That's right. I have to believe in you, and
Yeah.
I have to trust you.
Right.
And you have to really walk me through how you're going to take that money that I give you and turn it into tons of sales, tons of customers, new clients, all of that. So the storytelling is key.
So there are success stories, right?
Absolutely.
You can tell me now, you can say, okay, just give me an idea in terms of the kind of success that you've had, because this is what determines, being able to move forward and continue to raise money.
That's right. So most of the people that have been in the academy have been able to go off and then raise money.
Good.
They're scaling their companies. We have one. She is, it's called the Nurse Spot. And she has now been a vendor at the U.S. Open, at Citi Field. She's in JFK terminals.
Good.
And that's success, right? That's growth. That's really building your business. And that's a juice, beverage, healthy salads and sandwiches business.
And in today's world, Gayle, we know this. There's so much going on out there. There are so many choices that you've got to be able to come up with something that people will say, okay, this is new. This is unique. This is a different take, a different angle.
That's right.
That's a lot of work, being able to come up with something
That's
like
right.
that.
But here's
right?
the thing. Women are problem solvers. The best entrepreneurs are, in their essence, problem solvers. They see a problem and they say, I know a way to fix this.
Well, that's important.
So think about Uber and Lyft. We used to get from A to B, right? Like, you got to the party somehow. Maybe your buddy picked you up. He got his dad's car. You guys got to the prom, right? So you got places, right? Uber came along and said, hey, I've got another way, an easier, seamless way that we can still get people from A to B.
Built a better mousetrap.
That's right. So
That's
it's
what
all
you have
about
to
solving problems and better mousetraps.
Now, I was saying at the very beginning when I was introducing you, and I was talking about how progress has been made, and you just cited, some very good stories, but not enough, okay? And there's more to be done. I'd like to know what the stumbling blocks are. If you're looking at it now and saying, okay, we've done well, but these are the roadblocks, if you will. This is what stands in our way from really advancing women's roles in corporate leadership. What has to be done?
I think we've just got to start trusting women. We've got to trust women. We can't be second guessing them. We have to take them on their word.
You think there's a mistrust of women?
I think there's a mistrust. I see it even when I've been raising. So we have a multi-million-dollar venture fund, right, that we now use to invest in companies, tech companies. I would say as much of a resume that I had, right, the Ivy Leagues in there, right? You talked about the Whartons, the Michigans, J.P. Morgan. I worked in, in Silicon Valley. Great resume.
Yeah.
I like to think so. My mother's proud.
But because you're a woman?
But I got to tell you, like, walking into some rooms, there's still this, like, can she do it? Should I give her my money? Should I have someone else manage my money? Is she going to find the right investments?
Is that old school? Is that old thinking?
It's old thinking, but it's still here.
There.
It's still here. So
it's
yes, it's old thinking, but it still exists. So I think And listen, I don't think anyone truly wakes up to be a jerk, to carry isms in their heart and oppress another human being. I don't think most people wake up that way. I think people are positive, and that's why, you've got the audience you have, because people are looking for positivity in the world.
Exactly.
But I think because we don't have enough connection, it gets hard to trust each other. So think about that guy who lives in Greenwich. He takes the train in. He gets off at, Grand Central Station. He goes into his building, goes up 10 floors to his nice building. He does that 5 days a week.
Yep.
Now on the weekend, he plays golf with the guy that he went to school with, his roommate in college. He may not see me in all of that, right? He may not know that really cool hacker that's hanging out in Brooklyn that is like the next great coder and is going to have the next great tech app.
Sure.
Right? So it's not his fault, right? There's no isms necessarily.
Yeah,
it's just
that
not
there.
It's just not there, right? That proximity isn't there.
Yeah. So how do you change that?
Yeah. So part of how we change that is how we communicate. I think we need to do more what I'm calling +1. We need to invite each other into the different rooms. And that's actually why we're female forward. And so, yes, we invest in a lot of tech companies and tech entrepreneurs. We just want to make sure that there's women involved in the startup. Because when women are at the table, everybody gets a seat.
Yeah, absolutely.
When women are at the table, everybody eats.
That's very interesting. I like that line. Let me tell you a couple of things here, because I've always been a great supporter of women.
You have always been an ally. Let's just
I really have. I mean, I've
that.
got two
Come
beautiful
on.
sisters that I love dearly, and a wife, and I have a daughter, and I have a daughter-in-law, and I have grandchildren, and I've written books about young people, and so I'm a real champion for them. I really, care. To me, that kind of thing starts in the home, because I was taught that when I was a child, to respect everyone, to respect women, and to respect everyone. That's very important. But it begins, I think, in the home. And there are a lot of young girls, who are getting some pretty good role models, including yourself. But they're seeing it. No, but they're seeing it in schools. They're seeing it in the media.
That's right.
And do you think that's helping to help the next generation to come up, to give those women an opportunity to advance in the corporate world?
That's right, because you have to see it to think that you could be it. That's absolutely right.
That's true.
Yeah, and I remember I was going to school in Asia, and I had gone to Vietnam, and I had this aha moment of how isms are most mobile via media. Because here I was in Vietnam, in this small rural village, and yet they had these preconceived notions of me and black people because they had seen Boys in the Hood, they had seen New Jack City, right? They had seen all of these shows, movies, television shows, where, my community were the drug dealers, the pimps, the prostitutes. Yeah. So if they had never been to America and that's all they saw, that was, what they knew. So I think we have to be more intentional about the stories that we put out, so that those young girls and guys see different images of what and who people can be. Yeah. Absolutely.
What in what I do, I've been anchoring news for many years. Right now, I mean, I'm seeing a number of African American women of color, a lot of diversity in those people who are on the air playing major roles. Yeah. So do we think that we've got some progress coming here? Do we think that things will continue to improve, or will there be some backlash? Because sometimes that happens.
Yeah, listen, it's an ebb and flow. I mean, we're dealing with people, right? Yeah. And so when you're dealing with people and trying to change behavior, that's not easy, right? Changing mindsets, changing beliefs, behavior, it's hard, right? So we have to give ourselves grace. We have to give other people grace. I'm positive. I see change. I see improvement. I mean, the fact that we're having this conversation and can have it openly and honestly, and it's authentic, and it's not scripted. It's, we're not we're not tiptoeing around it. We're just having the conversation, right? Those moments give me hope. Absolutely, they give me hope. And here's the thing: when we talk about how we all can contribute in society, we're all the better for it. Think about this. LASIK eye surgery.
Yes.
Caller ID, the fact that you can pick up your phone and see who called you. Call waiting and, merge calls.
Yeah, familiar with all of that.
Yep. CCTV or a nanny cam or a speed camera, that security camera.
Yeah.
Those were all technologies invented by Black women.
Wonderful.
Like, what would the world be like if we hadn't allowed those women to contribute in that way?
Here's the thing, too, Gayle. How many people know that?
Not enough.
And why?
Well, a lot of people are going to know today because of you.
I like that. but so I mentioned media.
Yes.
And home and so forth, and talk about schools as well. How can that information be disseminated? How can it be brought about so that people have knowledge of it? Because we live in this information highway. I mean, this is what it's all about. It's explosive. Every time you turn around, there's some outlet someplace where you can get information. You talked about how you're going into that, into that media industry. What more can you do? What more can you do to help other companies to understand that this kind of information needs to get out?
Yeah, so we're doing a lot to tell people about these things, right? And so that's partly why we set up WOCSTAR Media, because we needed a way to distribute information like this. But I think it starts with identifying allies and helping allies be allies, right? So when we talk to corporations, when we talk to potential investors, we say, hey, this is how we've seen you support, and here's the things you could be doing to support the larger community. Yeah. Right? We've got people that say, hey, I can't find great women for this position. We say, well, send us the job posting. We've got a huge network, global network of women. We'll get you some great candidates, right? So it's those little moments. What I don't do is I don't worry about doing it at scale. Right, I still truly believe in, was it that little starfish anecdote, right? Just throwing one in at a time. Yeah. So it's these micro moments that I think are powerful, right? So I don't have to get on the mountain and scream, but if I can do it in these kinds of ways,
it's a lot of work. Having some knowledge of how things work and covering news all these years, connecting the dots is a big job, and it's full time, and you can't let up. You have to always be on top of that to make sure that you get the information out. Now,
and being intentional gets easier.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, I remember when I first started, I basically left JP Morgan, figured out my net worth and my balance sheet, and said, all right, honey, I'm going to take this much of our personal net worth and our balance sheet and start this company, WOCSTAR Capital. Right? I'm going to start this company. I had a different name early on, but it morphed into WOCSTAR Capital.
We'll remember WOCSTAR, okay?
WOCSTAR. WOCSTAR.com.
Yep.
And I thought, I should be intentional about the vendors I choose. The lawyer, the accountant, when we buy thank you, flowers, as thank you gifts. Yep. Find a woman, find someone of color, find a new business, right? Yeah, and listen, I don't want to get in trouble with 1-800-Flowers. I love them. I still use them.
Okay.
But what's that new small florist that I saw around the corner when I, was biking the other day? Let's call them. So that intentionality, to your point, we have to
to raise an awareness.
Yeah, we have to do it all the time, but it gets easier. I promise you, it does get easier.
Gayle, without getting political, because that can be a very touchy subject, and I'm always cautious about that because I've always walked that straight, narrow line right down the middle and try to be fair with everyone and respect everybody's opinion, and I really do.
Yeah.
So without really getting political, there's a lot of divisiveness. And we've seen that. A lot of people have very strong feelings in different directions.
That's right.
And I'm just wondering, is there a way to find somehow to be able to respect one another, to bring back a feeling of, okay, I will take advantage of what you know, and I will listen to it and take it into consideration. But it just seems that many times everybody's just like, this is what I believe.
Yeah.
This is it, and I'm not going to listen to anybody else. I'm not going to bend. There's nothing wrong with a little change. I mean, you might feel a certain way about whatever it happens to be, but someone gives you some information, and it adds to your knowledge of what the topic is about and can help you understand. I think we're missing some of that in our country, and we need to bring that back.
That's right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And I think we as society, we as the country, need to demand better. Now, it's not enough to say to the politicians, to the candidates, hey, we want a fair campaign, election cycle. We have to insist on it, right? We will be served what people think we're going to eat. Mm-hmm. And so if they think that will render votes and mobilize us, then that's what we're going to get. Someone said to me, my husband's Irish, and so we're back and forth to Europe and such. And I remember we were home once. We've been together 30 years, so I can't remember which trip this was. But someone said, you get the president you deserve. And I thought, this was an Irish person. Yeah. And they said, you've gotten the president you deserve. And I thought, my goodness, you're right. We have to demand better of our candidates, of our politicians, our elected officials, our leadership, of our institutions. Mm-hmm. And when we do, guess what? People respond differently.
Yes.
Right? Same way with media, right? If we're not watching, guess what? They're going to try a different television show, a different format. So I think it has to happen there. But I worry because some of the most segregated hours of the day is during church. That's Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. And that ripple effect happens throughout. And so many communities are not connected.
Yeah, I would love to be able to see, and I've said this many times before, I would just like to see more leadership in the way of campaigns to help bring us together, to help unite us, find ways to have hands across America, hands across each state. Right. I think we need to see. I recently did a story about how a number of people will move out of their neighborhood or will not move into a new neighborhood if they don't think that the people living there have the same political ideas.
Yeah.
We have to be careful with that.
That's right.
Because, we're supposed to respect one another.
Yeah, listen, I'm an independent, so I don't know where I'm supposed to live.
It's a wonderful country where you have the freedom to be able to express yourself.
That's right.
And let's not argue about it. Let's not get into fights about it. Let's not have anger and hatred towards that. We should honor that.
That's right.
We live in a country that gives us that opportunity.
Yeah. And we've got to get to a place where I have to see you as my neighbor.
Yeah.
Right? It's not enough for me to do well at the expense of you not doing well. Right? Like all boats have to rise.
We've heard that line, it's the United States, not the divided states.
That's right.
And I think that this is where we all have to be very careful.
That's
Again,
right.
Going back to the word respect, to me that really is very important. Be able to say, look, I will respect you for who you are and what your ideas are. I will live my life, you'll live yours, but we can find a mutual ground someplace.
Yeah, and we have to be proactive in doing that.
Yeah, we do.
I mean, listen, it's easy for me to stay in the women's empowerment world, and I am women, hear me roar. I can hang out with powerful WOCSTARs all day, but I have to be intentional, and I have to put the effort to hear people that don't share the same.
For sure.
Ideas as
For
me.
sure.
Values-wise, we probably have the same values, right? We all want our kids to have a good life. We want the next generation to do better.
Yeah.
We want safety. We want, quality food,
all
housing.
those
Right?
basics.
I can't imagine our values are that different.
Right.
But how and what the ideas are that we think to achieve those, that's where we start to differ. But we've got to do that in a respectful way.
Yeah. I also ask a question of my guests. If you were to pass on some good information to a newborn baby, something that little child would be able to, put in a drawer someplace and open it up at a future time in their life to say, boy, that was really good information that she gave me. What would you pass along to a newborn baby? What should they know going through life?
Yeah. I'm saying it to myself now, and I'm not a newborn, but I say it to myself even now. Be a better listener than a talker. Be a better listener.
That's so important because when you're listening, you're learning, you're growing, and you're appreciating someone else's comments, and maybe you can put it to use somewhere. Okay, maybe you'll learn something from it.
Right.
So, be a better listener.
Be a better listener.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And there's another line that I like. It says, "Your life should speak louder than your words." And
Ernie, I love that.
Isn't that a nice one? You don't have to
that.
talk about who you are, what you've done. Be the example. Be the living example. Show people what you're doing. And that, to me, is the best role model that you can be.
Yeah.
I like that.
I love that. What I didn't tell you is part of why not only the aha moment when the entrepreneur called me and was worried about making payroll, But I had also survived cancer. And I had made a pact that if I got off the operating table, if I had my eyesight, I would live a life of purpose. Wow. And I didn't know what that purpose was. Yeah. And then I got that call, right? That call, and she's worried about making payroll. And I thought, all right, I can do this. This is going to give me purpose.
Good for you. I like that.
And so I actually, people say, oh, well, you're a venture capitalist. And I said, no, I'm just in service of entrepreneurs. I feel like I get up to serve.
Well, I applaud you. I applaud you for what you just told me about your struggle and your victory over cancer.
Thank you.
There are a lot of survivors out there that can relate to that. And what you're doing, we want people to remember WOCSTAR.com.
That's right.
Gayle Jennings O'Byrne. I like that name. I thank you so much for being here today. You've been a great guest.
Oh my gosh! Thank you for having this conversation.
My pleasure.
This is allyship.
I love it. And you know what? You're an inspiration to a lot of people. I'm sure there are people watching, listening, and saying, "I like that," and I'm going to follow through and find my sense of purpose. That's
and
important.
they can reach out to me at WOCSTAR.com, and I will help them find it.
Love
and
it.
They can come to our academy.
Love it so much.
So, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, Gayle. All good things to you and your family, okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed the show, everybody. Join us next time here on Positively Ernie, okay? Have a great day.